Hi, everyone. Dr. Miner here with our Best Practices podcast with UAC. We're with Dr. Lauryn Brunclik. I have to double check myself on that name. I messed it up in the podcast. But she gets into her success, and her path from how she started as a clinic owner and how that's diversified into podcast, real estate, coaching programs. Classic path for a UAC person, but she's done it well. This episode is brought to you by one of our sponsors, which is Aspen Laser and Theralite. And what's cool about Aspen is they bring another modality into your clinic, and they actually will come out. They get 10 or 15 of your toughest patients. They pay for themselves to come out. They'll treat those patients with the laser therapy, and it's how they sell it. It does that good of a job. And if you don't help people and you don't see the results, they actually pay you $500 to come treat your patient. So if you want more information, you got to contact Mark Murdoch with Aspen. His number is 214-641-1827. Let's jump into the episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to the UAC Best Practices podcast. Welcome again. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Alan Miner. What this is all about is access to the UAC knowledge base and getting a little nugget from one of our members that you can take and learn and implement hopefully rather quickly in your practice to make a big difference for your business and the patients you serve. So, Doc, you take it from here?
Yeah, I will, absolutely. And a quick shout out just on your part before we start. Dr. Brian, one of our sponsors is Genesis Chiropractic Software, something you know a little bit about. We use them in our clinics. You use them too, Dr. Lauryn. Yep. We started with Genesis years ago because they're a cloud-based system. And now I know that's more common, but it wasn't for a long time. And with multiple clinics, that really was important. So here's your commercial, Brian. I'm going to read it in front of you. That's why
new twist.
I'm going to read it right in front of you. As a UAC member, you know how crucial the right systems are for your practice. That's why UAC recommends Genesis Chiropractic Software. All-in-one solution covers everything from patient scheduling to documentation and billing. With AI-powered automation, Genesis helps prevent tasks from slipping through the cracks and allows your practice to run more efficiently. You can find out more at genesischiropracticsoftware.com. I think Lauryn and I can be your best testimony on this ad.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
With that said, let's jump into it. Today, our guest is UAC member Dr. Lauryn Brunclik, who I think Brunclik. I still left it up.
That's why I left.
Sorry,
Lauryn. We're so close. You just flopped.
Anyways, I like a lot of chiropractors saw Lauryn start popping up on my Instagram feed a long time ago, and now the algorithm feeds me her stuff more than anybody else. I don't open Instagram without seeing your face.
Making more content than anybody else.
Maybe so. But you started, Lauryn, with as a practice owner, and like a lot of UAC members, you've evolved that into your own direction and your own path, and are literally building your own empire. So you guys are based out of northern Wisconsin. I know you impact chiropractors all over the world now, but let's talk best practices on your journey. What would you like to share for maybe not the typical UAC member, but people who are scaling, aspiring to build a multi-million-dollar brand and clinic? What do you have to share?
Right. So, I started my practice in 2010, and I get asked a lot if back when I was in chiropractic school or new graduate, if I kind of always thought that I would take this route. And by far, no, not at all. I don't want to say only had aspirations, but my plan was to grow a practice. I thought I'd be totally stoked if I got to 200 a week and I was going to have kids and do the thing. And so we did the thing, got to 200. That wasn't enough. Got to 500. That wasn't enough. And
quick question, Lauryn. Did you have a career before chiropractic, or did you go right from school?
I graduated when I was 24 years old.
So this is first time making money, anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first multiple years of practice, people would just be like new patients. They'd just be looking at me, and I'd be like, any questions? And they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, old enough to be a chiropractor. We had like a big old party at my clinic when I finally turned 30, and they're like, 30? You've been my doc for 6 years. I'm like, yes, I have. But I married a guy with a finance and marketing degree. So it wasn't like I was on my own. So did the practice thing, and it was really good. And there, I look back now, and now that I have the like hindsight is 2020, I think what started to happen is as that like new girl energy, and I use this phrase a lot on the podcast, like the new girl energy. I use it even for guys. Like it's like we're excited, we owe $200,000 to the government for our degree, and it's like this has to work. And so you are like willing to do pop-ups at Costco if that's what's going to get new patients. And then you really get to this comfort level where now you really don't want to sacrifice your Saturday. And I kind of do air quotes because I haven't talked to a single person who's at this level who's like, oh, yeah, and I'm making exactly as much money as I want to. I don't want more. So I kind of do the air quotes to comfort level is like, well, you want more. You want more weekly new patients. You want more annual revenue. But you, whether you realize it or not, have totally lost that new girl energy because now you can comfortably pay for things. So you don't want to be uncomfortable. So you want to grow your practice, but you really want to do it on your own rules and things like this. So then shockingly, the practice loses the momentum and doesn't keep growing. Then what starts to happen is you're pulled out of patient care. This is like my story, and this is a story I see so many chiropractors go through. You're being pulled out of patient care to take care of this thing you made because it requires a CEO, but the only way you really make more money is if you're back in patient care. And so you start to get really frustrated. The word that's been like the it word for years is burnt out. I think a better word is more resentful. I think that so many chiropractors have no idea. It usually happens probably anywhere between year 3 and 10 that you start to resent your clinic. You resent it because it's taking all this time and energy, but it's not making as much money as you want. You resent that, like, you have to hire another front desk person. You have to deal with patient bullshit, even though we love 99% of our patients. You have to deal with an audit. You have to deal with Medicare. You have to deal with all these things. And so, and it's like all of your eggs are in this basket. You want to redo your kitchen? Well, go get 20 more new patients. You want to take the family on another trip this year? Go get 15 more new patients. And so like it's all this stuff that subconsciously starts happening, and you like, I fell in love with this practice and I love chiropractic, but like you start to just get a little resentful that it's your only identity. And so, or for me, I think I had quite a bit of resentment now that I look back, but I also just kind of went the route of like, I'm a little bored. And so I started to create systems in the clinic that would allow me to have just a little more free time to build other things. And so that was kind of what happened in 2019 was like started the podcast purely as a
Hey,
hobby.
Lauren, let me, before we go there, two
Yeah.
quick things. One, the way I'd phrase it is people start playing like they have something to lose. When you're starting out, you don't have anything to lose, so you do anything, but they start getting conservative, like, because they have something to lose with what they built, even though it's not what they envision in the lifestyle. The other thing that's interesting to me, I've been at this old dog long enough. I think back in the day, instead of chiropractors going down the path you're about to tell us, what they would do when they got bored was that's when they'd go learn a new technique. They would go, it was always the techniques. It was the learners. They'd start bringing other devices in. They'd get into standard process. And now there's such a wider spectrum that I think that I just wanted to highlight that I think the old school was I'm bored, so I'm going to start doing these different things in the clinic. But now you're realizing, wait, I can go way outside of the clinic. So anyhow.
Totally. You know what's really funny though is so my 7-year itch, I started a personal brand and podcast. My 14-year itch, I brought in decompression in my practice and shockwave. So I did it both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's a whole other like side thing that doesn't really resonate, I don't think, with like the UAC docs. But like there's a lot of straight um rules that chiropractors are supposed to follow within chiropractic. And so like you're supposed to chase, I call them Girl Scout badges of like, you're supposed to get to a 7-figure practice. You're supposed to do high volume. You're supposed to do all cash. But if you're not doing it just with chiropractic, then, then we have a
Yeah.
problem. And I don't think that's a UAC thing, but like when you start to go
No.
to some of these other practices. Yeah, Brian.
No, I was agreeing with you, and I'm also thinking, Alan, you remember, me a few years ago where I was, bored. I can tell, maybe it makes sense.
Side note. Brian called me one day. He built a very successful, software business, and he's like, I have nothing to do. Like I'm bored out of my mind, and it was the funniest call looking at him today. So,
Yeah,
anyways, just go on.
yeah, that
For master
I don't want to take the
delegators.
time, but it's so maybe I just am trying to articulate for people listening that it's not only chiropractic. When you build a business and it gets to a plateau where you feel like there's not much more you can do about it, right? Now we've done something in the past couple of years and it's changed, and now I'm back in the trenches, and then it's exciting again in a way. But I think what we're talking about is doing something that you feel inspired to do in the morning,
Hmm.
because it just gets monotonous, right? Like
Yeah.
it can be monotonous as much as you loved it at 24 years old. You still love it, but it's like, I think we need a little
Monotony is
spice
exactly
and
what it
variety
is.
in
You're
our
like,
life,
okay,
right?
different patient,
Lauren,
same.
do you, I talk to docs all week long for Chiro Matchmakers, and it's interesting to me how I would say there's a massive push. I very much came out of the school you just defined, cash practice, high volume, has to be subluxation, but maybe I'm not in those circles anymore, but I think almost every doc I talk to who has a big enough practice that they can comfortably hire good high level associates. They're in shockwave, they're in decompression, they're in functional. They've found these other avenues. It's almost always built on chiropractic. It really seems by large as an industry we've kept that. But there's other things, and you found that I think maybe you weren't so tied to the old dogma of it, so you found it a little faster. But it's rare that you find a clinic go much over 1 million anymore that's straight chiropractic. It really is.
Agreed.
I would
Agreed.
say
Yeah.
too, in my world, there's no business runs like that. Like where you only do one thing and you don't have other ways to build revenue and value for your customers. It's actually our job in the business. Now you can keep your principles and figure out how to fit all that stuff in, but it doesn't exist in outside of chiropractic when you're
So
building.
tell us. So keep going, Lauren. Where did you take this now? So here we are. You built the practice. Time to do something else. Where to go?
Yeah, so, I started to just really pull back. And the first time I pulled back, I didn't have systems in place. I was still holding on to a lot of control. Again, nobody really knows. Like most people, there's very few people walking around going like, "Oh yes, yes, I'm hyper controlling the situation." Like docs don't understand that they had a control issue until they really learn it. And so, like, looking back, I definitely was still just like had all of these things. We had systems and procedures, but like I was like these almost like sobriety checkpoints of like they couldn't go through an entire like flow system without my hands on it a little bit, depending on what it was. And so we really had to look at why when I pull back does the energy of the clinic. Like, I'm not a super woo woo person. I know that there's a ton of science out there about manifesting and pulling that in. So it's like, okay, so do I just have to like sit in my waiting room and like, 'cause that's not going to work for me. And so we really had to figure out how that clinic keeps the energy, how the clinic keeps the magneticism without me being like, I can be the visionary, but I don't have to like literally sit there.
So what was the answer?
Oh, it's a lot of repetition. It's not the answer I wanted. Because like I'm the type of person that like I want to step in and give one inspirational speech or like go through the core values exercise one time and I'm like, "You got it, right? We're good?" Okay. Cool. And it's like so we'd like solve this thing, we'd have this meeting and everyone would be feeling good. And then like 3 months later, I'd be like, "What the fuck? Why
Yeah.
do I need?" And so like it's realizing that, a coach, my Kirby always laughs anytime because I go to like sports metaphors and I've never played any sports, so I botch them all the time. But it's like, if you think about just like a football game, right, or a basketball game, that coach inspires the team like at the last practice. They're talking about like tomorrow, here's what we're gonna face, right? And then before the game, there is this new twist on it, probably. And then at halftime, I'm assuming, I don't know, I've heard from other people that like whether you're down or whether you're winning, there's a different speech. And then at the end, it's like talking about learning whether you won or lost, it's a different speech. And then it's like, but we're still moving forward. We're going to learn from our mistakes, but we're moving forward. We're looking at this. And so here I was being like, can I just give like one hoorah at the annual meeting and it's good? Apparently not. So you need to figure out how to like continually say a lot. Like I think visionaries, we don't I don't know whether it's I'm a visionary, an Enneagram 3, a manifesting generator, whatever you want to call it. Like I don't need somebody else to hype me up. And I think we forget that like our team absolutely does. And so you don't have to be
That's
in
great
clinic,
advice.
but like you have to figure out how to continually
Yeah.
be emotionally present and hype them up.
Yeah, it's a variable. My dad haunted. I remember my dad telling me when I was stepping out of practice, he'd never run a business, middle income, work for the phone company. He's like, I don't understand how you're gonna replicate yourself in all these offices, and he was in his own language saying, "You're the one that brings the energy to this thing. How are you gonna do that?" And it was a fair question. I've spent a decade trying to master, as you're highlighting. It really was. I didn't know what he was speaking over me. Tell us, one thing as you're talking, Lauren, that I'd never really thought about till right now. I think two of the biggest podcast people in chiropractic are in UAC, and that's Jeff Langmaid with the Smart Chiropractor and you with your show. And they couldn't be two more different shows. And you're very open about your numbers that I see on some of your posts. And I've talked to Jeff, and I don't think most chiropractors realize the income earning potential from a podcast when you built a brand like you and Jeff have. And I know that's just one of your tributaries, but you've been doing it a while. And I know you go into this a lot on your own podcast, so I don't need you to go in depth, but just at a high level, what's been the arc of that? And then how's that led to the stuff you're doing now?
So it's been everything that I've done now. It's just realizing the journey that I took. So like what you're alluding to, I think, right, is what I'm doing now is I'm helping healthcare professionals create an additional source of revenue, like they can love their day job, but like this second revenue stream by creating an online personal brand. And these are healthcare professionals, so we're not like teaching them viral techniques or, bikini photos. This isn't like influencer stuff. This is leveraging your authority as a chiropractor and creating a personal brand online. Now, it's very different advice than it was 5 or 10 years ago. If you wanted to create a personal brand, again, 5 or 10 years ago, you would have had a much easier time. So, like, I'm really having to work with them on how to niche down to stand out. But in the advice that I'm giving them, I'm talking about like you need something outside of social media. You also need a long form content, and they don't like that. And the thing is like short form, or we talk like social media is that bait, like that's that carrot to be like, let me entertain you, let me educate you, and bring them in. But if you don't have something like a podcast or YouTube, and they don't have to be long, like just even like streaming live once a week, things like that. That's where that audience really gets that trust and authority.
Yeah.
And so Rory Vaden, who is huge in the personal branding world, he's like done like Amy Porterfield, Rachel, like some big people. And he talks about giving away your best content for 3 years before you even try and sell anything. And I remember when he said that and I heard him talk because ironically, we had been unintentionally doing that. I started the podcast as a hobby. Like I jokingly just posted a reel that was like me just being like, I'm just gonna start a podcast. And the first episode was like 1,000 downloads. Like
Wow.
when I was like, oh, this is this is like a thing. And now we get like 6 to 10,000 downloads a month. And I was like, cool. Where the average podcast gets like 126. And so,
Yep.
but we didn't monetize for 2+ years
Yeah.
because there was
Mhm.
no like, I didn't go into it to do that.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, I make 4 to 5 times what I take home from my clinic through the
Yeah.
personal brand and all of the arms
Yeah.
of it. And that's because the profit margins are insane.
Yeah.
So
There's
like
not a lot
when
of
you
people
look
helping you
at
out
like
on
the
this.
profit margins of an online business, it's like 80%.
Yeah.
So, it's like I still show up to clinic and adjust, but there's a whole different sense where I'm just like, some patient giving me sass, and I'm just like, I just want to be like, bitch, I don't even need to be here. Like, you don't get to be me. My front desk is just like, please don't be mean to her. She's gonna stop adjusting. I told my front desk, I'm like, I don't think I have 3 more years of customer service in me for this shit.
Well, 2 more questions before we're out of time, Lauren. First is, of all your businesses, I'm curious, which one has built the most wealth for you?
Well, that's a tricky question because the newest one, the personal branding membership, by far has the most potential. And we just built a $5 million a year plan based as like the main source, not the main source, but like the main funnel.
Yeah. How
So
about
like
before that? Before that came along, which was it?
that would have been just my Q1 program,
Okay.
the
So
motivational
program's still online. Ours has been the real estate side of it between all the clinic ownership. I was curious where you're
well,
going to
if you're
go.
looking at like what contributes most to our net worth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess obviously real estate is an easy one, but like just like annual income because like our real estate,
Not the
we're
cash flow, but it's the net worth side of it, right? Yeah.
yeah, cash
Yeah.
flow. I think for us, we only have 2 commercial and 1 Airbnb. And so
Okay.
like that's bringing in
Yeah.
probably right around 6 figures in cash flow. But
Yep.
like, which is like, no.
What about, last question, and we'll wrap it. UAC, you've been in it for a minute now.
Yeah,
What's been the benefit? What's been I think you're coming down to Miami. Did I see
I
that?
am coming down to Miami.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to spending time with you and Kirby at F1. So yeah, anyway, what's
Well,
been
neither
the
of us are gonna
benefit?
be there. Kirby's gonna be golfing, and I'm gonna be by the pool, but I'm coming for the
Awesome.
dinners.
We'll be there with
So
you for this.
basically, my accountability group peer pressured me because they're going. I am in 2 accountability groups. So I'm in a social media accountability group where it's funny. I'm like the small dog when we're looking at the number of followers that these people have. And then I'm in another all women one. And I just love the people like in the group. They're so incredible.
Cool.
So that
Awesome.
accountability group's been my favorite.
Love it. Well, Dr. Lauren, thank you for taking a minute to share with us, and we're big fans.
I'm big
Thanks,
fans
Doctor.
too.
See you in Miami.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one, Lauren. Thanks for joining us.